Your card gets declined at the register. $6.40. A coffee and a bagel. That's it. The cashier looks away. The guy behind you checks his phone. Nobody says anything. You've heard the advice already. Cut the coffee, start a side hustle, buy the index fund and wait. None of that helps you right now, standing at a register doing math in your head. This isn't a video about getting rich. Don't try to get rich. Build a financial life that's hard to destroy. That's the whole idea. Everything else is just 23 years of what that actually looks like. You step outside with the coffee you never got and open your banking app. The number stares back. -$11.20. You know exactly what happened. Your rent auto-drafted at midnight. You forgot. The bank already knows too. A message is waiting for you. Overdraft fee, $34. The fee isn't really about the coffee. It's about what happens when a payment hits an account with no room left. Same mistake, different balance, completely different outcome. You work at a logistics company off Colfax Avenue in Denver. Dispatch coordinator, your first real job title. Your paycheck lands every 2 weeks. $1,610 after taxes. Rent is $790. A room, not an apartment. A room in a house with 3 other people and 1 bathroom. Schedule nobody follows. You budget on your phone in the Notes app because the fancy apps all want $12 a month. You don't have. There's a guy at work named Trevor. Same job, same pay probably. He walks in Monday with new AirPods Max. The big over-ear ones. $549. You looked it up on your lunch break, which you probably shouldn't have done. Nobody asked how he paid for them. Nobody ever asks. You don't say anything either, you just notice. And noticing costs nothing, which is the only thing that costs nothing this month. You pay the overdraft fee because you have to. You transfer $20 from the little cushion you were building. It's not a cushion anymore. It's flat. If you'd had $1,500 sitting there, that same forgotten rent payment would have cost you nothing. Same forgetting. Different balance. That's the first thing you learn at 22, and you don't even realize you're learning it yet. A promotion. Small one. Route planner now, not just dispatch. Your pay goes up to $1,840 a month after taxes. You feel it for about a week, then it just becomes the new normal, the way raises always do. There's a work trip, nothing fancy, a regional conference in Salt Lake City, 2 nights in a hotel that isn't yours to pick. Everyone's going out the first night, a rooftop bar downtown, string lights, the kind of place that photographs well. You don't have anything to wear that feels like you belong there. Not really. Everything in your closet is fine for Denver, not fine for this. So you buy a jacket. Black, structured, the kind people call elevated basics in the description. $479. On the card you opened in college for a free water bottle and a t-shirt. You didn't check the interest rate before you tapped it. Most people don't. It's sitting at 23.9%. You find that out later. Tonight, you're just excited to wear it, and it works. A coworker named Priya, who you've talked to maybe 4 times, says she likes it. Asks where it's from. For about 90 seconds, you're exactly the person you paid to become. Nobody at that rooftop knows the number. Nobody ever does. That's the part that doesn't show up in the photo. You get home. Life goes back to normal. The jacket hangs in your closet. You wear it twice more that year. The balance doesn't hang anywhere, it just sits on a statement you scroll past. You pay the minimum. $31 a month. It feels responsible, it feels like you're handling it. At 23.9%, paying only the minimum can stretch a purchase like this out for years, and add a painful amount of interest on top of it. The exact payoff time depends on the card's own minimum payment formula, but the direction is always the same. Slow and expensive. Nobody explains this part in school. Compound interest gets taught like it's always your friend. Nobody mentions the same idea that makes money grow can also make expensive debt harder to escape. You don't know this yet. You just know the minimum payment clears every month and the balance barely moves, and you stop checking as closely as you probably should. That not checking becomes a habit before you notice it's one. October. Open enrollment email lands in your inbox. You've deleted that subject line unread for 2 years running. This time, you actually open it. There's a line in bold. The company matches part of whatever you put into the 401k. Money that's been sitting on the table since your first day. Untouched. Because the form felt like homework you never had time for. You walk it down the hall to a guy named Marcus in accounting. Different Marcus. Not anyone you know outside these 4 walls. Just a guy who explains things without making you feel small for not knowing them. You're not contributing at all? He asks. Not unkind. Just surprised. You tell him you didn't really understand what any of it meant. He turns his monitor slightly. Shows you the shape of his account. Not the number, the plan. He's been putting in enough to get the full match since the day he started. Your employer's match formula isn't the same as everyone else's. His plan matches dollar for dollar, up to 6%. 6% was enough to capture the whole thing. You think about your paycheck differently that night. Like it's 2 things happening to the same money. Most of it leaves within days. Rent, groceries, the card from the rooftop trip, still not paid off. It comes in, and it goes, and nothing about it stays. Then there's the other kind. The kind that doesn't leave. It just sits there. You set your 401k contribution to 6% that week, enough to get the full match. Not $1 more, not yet. You also open something you've never had before, a Roth IRA through an app on your phone, in bed, still in your work clothes. Unlike the 401k, the Roth isn't tied to your employer. It's yours no matter where you work next. You set up an automatic transfer, $75, every other Friday. The day you get paid. It feels almost insultingly small next to everything else going on. The jacket balance. The rent. The card. $75 isn't going to buy you anything you could post about. That's sort of the point, though you don't fully understand it yet. You just feel it distantly, like a door opening in a room you haven't walked into. Nobody's going to see the $75. Nobody's going to ask where you got it. It just sits there, under your name, doing the one thing money can do that spending never lets it do. Grow. Quietly. While you're doing something else entirely. You don't feel rich that night. You don't feel anything really. You just close the laptop and go to sleep without checking the credit card app once. Group chat Tuesday night. A photo drops in from your friend Alyssa. A car. Silver, low, parked outside a dealership on Colorado Boulevard. Caption, surprise from Jordan. You zoom in without meaning to. You don't know cars. But you know that badge costs more than your car and hers combined, probably twice over. You're at a taco place with 2 coworkers when it lands. You set the phone face down on the table. Below the patio, Denver does the thing it does at dusk. The mountains go purple, then gray, then gone. You've driven past that dealership 100 times. Never once thought about what's actually behind those glass windows. Just cars. Just numbers. Here's the thing nobody tells you about a car like that. It doesn't mean what you think it means. There's an old story, a real one, about a man named Ronald Reed, gas station attendant in Vermont, later swept floors part-time at a JCPenney, drove an old beat-up Toyota, held his coat together with a safety pin because a new one felt unnecessary. When he died in 2014, at 92, the people who knew him, his own stepson, his neighbors, found out he'd been sitting on almost $8 million. He built it slowly, in ordinary stocks, over most of his adult life. His story isn't proof that anyone can do the same thing and land on the same number. It's a reminder of what long-time horizons and plain discipline can do. Quietly, when nobody's watching. You read that story on your phone that same night, a little after 11. You read it twice. Rich is what you can see. The car, the ring, the jacket from a rooftop bar 2 years ago. It's what somebody was willing to spend to look a certain way, in one specific photo, at one specific moment. Wealthy is the part with no picture. The balance nobody screenshots. Boring, on purpose. Sitting quietly in an account, not performing, not being watched. There's a phrase you copy into your notes app that night before you can talk yourself out of caring about it. Take 72. Divide it by whatever your money's earning. That tells you roughly how many years until it doubles. Historically, broad U.S. stocks have produced strong long-term returns, though any single year can look wildly different from the average. At a hypothetical 10%, 72 divided by 10 lands a little over 7. 7 years to double at that hypothetical rate. Then 7 more to double again. Except the second doubling is worth twice as much because it's doubling a bigger pile. If money actually earned something close to that every year, each dollar you invested today would roughly double every 7 years. Not because it's promised, because that's what the math does when the return holds. You think about the jacket again, still in the closet, still technically costing you money every single month. It sits there, unpaid. Ronald Reed let compounding work for him for 50 years. You've had it working against you for 2. You didn't notice until tonight. There's a guy at work now named Dominic, warehouse ops, 2 cubicles over. He corners you by the coffee machine on a Wednesday, phone already out before you've said good morning. Look at this. He turns the screen toward you. A chart. Green, climbing fast. He put $4,000 of his own money into an options trade on a semiconductor stock 2 months ago and borrowed another $4,000 on margin. $8,000 total. Riding on one earnings call, he's already ordered the watch. A steel dive watch, the kind with a green bezel everyone in his group chat wants, should be at his apartment by Friday. He talks about it like it's already paid for. Technically, most of it isn't. You nod along, say something like, "That's incredible." Because in that exact moment, on that exact chart, it is. You think about your own $75, automated, boring, sitting in a fund you couldn't even name off the top of your head. For a second, the old feeling creeps back, the one from the rooftop, from the car in the group chat, behind, slower, smaller. 3 weeks later, the chart isn't green anymore. You hear it before you see it. Dominic's voice through the thin cubicle wall, tighter than usual, on the phone with someone about a margin call. You'd only ever half understood that term. Now you watch it happen to a person you actually know. The stock dropped 18% in 2 days. On an $8,000 position, that's about $1,440 gone. But it only came out of his $4,000, not the borrowed half. $1,440 against $4,000 of his own money. 36% gone in 2 days. His broker liquidated the position once the account fell below the required margin level. He didn't get to choose the price. Nobody in his position ever does. You do the math later that night the way you've started doing with everything now. If you lose half of what you have, you don't need 50% back to get even. You need 100%. If you lose 80%, you need 400% just to return to where you started. The deeper the hole, the more the climb out costs. And it doesn't grow in a straight line. It curves against you. Faster, the lower you go. You think about the watch that isn't coming Friday anymore. You think about your own $75, unborrowed, unleveraged, sitting quietly in a fund that owns a small sliver of 500 different companies, instead of one chip stock riding on a single earnings call. You didn't pick it because you're smart. You picked it mostly because you didn't know what else to do. Turns out, not knowing what else to do was closer to the right answer than Dominic's chart ever was. Nobody could have told you in advance which few stocks would carry the market that year. Nobody could have told Dominic either. He just believed, for 3 weeks, that he was the exception. You're starting to understand something. The whole game isn't about being right once. It's about never being wrong enough that there's nothing left to build from. Dominic doesn't bring up the chart again. You don't ask. It isn't cold between you. It's just quiet, the way most real things eventually get quiet once the noise around them stops paying off. The jacket balance hits 0 on a Tuesday. No countdown, no notification that means anything. Just a number that used to be there and isn't anymore. You check it 3 times to make sure you're reading it right. It took you almost 2 years longer than it should have, because for a long stretch you were only ever paying the minimum. Then sometime around 26, you started paying more. An extra $40 here, an extra $60 there. Whatever was left after the automatic transfers went out first, you don't remember deciding to do that. You just remember it becoming normal. Your title's changed twice since the rooftop trip. Operations lead now. Pay is $3,100 a month after taxes. You still live in Denver, still in the same neighborhood, just not the same room with 3 roommates anymore. A 1-bedroom now, in a building without a name that means anything. On a street with a laundromat you actually use. Rent is $1,110. It takes a bigger bite than the room used to. You notice. You don't panic about it though. That's new. There's a separate account now, one you don't touch, labeled nothing dramatic, just don't. 6 months of expenses, sitting there, earning a small amount of interest, doing absolutely nothing except existing. It took 14 months to build. Nobody watched you build it. Nobody congratulated you when it was done, because nobody knew it was done. That's the part that surprises you most, how quiet the whole thing was. Then your car needs a new alternator. $210, the mechanic says, like it's nothing. At 22, $210 would have meant moving numbers around for a week, maybe missing something else to cover it. Tonight, you just pay it and go home. Same number, completely different Tuesday. A coworker, going through a rough stretch, mentions offhand that her car broke down and she doesn't know how she's going to cover it. You don't say anything about your own account. It doesn't come up. It's just there in the background, changing what a broken car actually means for you now. It means an inconvenience, not a crisis. That distinction didn't exist for you 3 years ago. You still see the group chat. Someone posts a trip to Cabo. Someone else posts a new couch, the kind with a name brand people recognize. You don't feel the drop in your stomach the way you used to. It's not that you don't want things. You still want things. It's that wanting them doesn't come with the same edge of falling behind anymore. The silence is the part nobody warns you about. Not the good kind of silence. Not exactly. Just an absence. The absence of the constant, low-grade math you used to run every time you open your banking app. You open it now out of habit, not dread. A raise lands in March. Your pay moves to $4,100 a month after taxes. Same job title, more responsibility, the kind of bump that comes with a longer meeting on your calendar every Monday. You don't upgrade the apartment. You think about it for about a week, a building downtown with a gym and a rooftop deck. Then you don't. Instead, you sit down with the numbers on a Sunday and do something you've never done before. You actually run them, all the way out, on a small condo listing you found in a neighborhood called Berkeley, on the north side of the city. Not glamorous. A decent kitchen, 1 bedroom, a parking spot that matters more than it sounds like it should in a city with real winters. The listing is $231,000. You've saved enough, slowly, without noticing the saving, for a down payment that gets you a reasonable mortgage. Not a stretch, not a flex, just a number that fits. You close on it in June. The mortgage payment is $1,340 a month. More than your old rent. Less than what the downtown building would have cost you for a gym you'd have used twice. Here's what nobody explained to you clearly before this year. Not all spending is the same kind of spending. The jacket, years ago, was money that left your account and came back with nothing lasting. A feeling that faded in about 90 seconds, and a balance that took years to clear. The condo works differently. Every payment splits into 2 pieces. Interest, which is a cost, and principal, which is yours. Slowly, a little more each month, you're not renting space anymore. You're buying a piece of it back from the bank, 1 payment at a time. That's what equity actually means. Not a term for people richer than you, just the part of something that's actually quietly yours. It's not automatic wealth though. There's interest on the loan. Property taxes twice a year. An insurance bill. A furnace that will eventually need replacing on its own schedule, not yours. Owning something and it building value for you aren't always the same guarantee, but the equity is real, and the jacket never had any. You still see the group chat. Someone posts an engagement ring this year. A big one, the kind that catches light from across a room. You clap for them, genuinely. You also notice, without meaning to, that you don't do the math against yourself the way you used to. There's a version of you, 7 years ago, standing at a register while a card gets declined for $6.40. That version of you would not recognize a Sunday spent reading mortgage amortization schedules for fun. Not fun exactly. Something close to it. You increase your 401k contribution that same year from 6% to 11%. The extra 5% doesn't feel like anything in a given month. It never does. That's the trick of it. It was never supposed to feel like anything. Alyssa posts from Cabo again this year. Different trip, same caption energy. Jordan's driving something new now too. You don't ask what happened to the old one. You're at a birthday dinner for a friend from the old dispatch job, a place downtown with candles doing more work than the food. Someone across the table is talking about a kitchen renovation. Someone else is talking about private school tuition for a kid who isn't born yet. You don't say much, not because you don't have anything to add, because what you'd actually say wouldn't land right in this particular room. Your net worth crossed $400,000 this year. You know the number. You checked it on a Tuesday alone, the way you check most things now, quietly, without an audience, without anyone to show it to, even if you wanted to. It didn't happen from one good year or one lucky pick. Your salary kept climbing, a little most years. The 11% kept going into the 401k on autopilot, whether the market was up or down. The condo mortgage kept shrinking every month, the same way it always had. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, the market did some of the work too. Not consistently, not on a schedule, just often enough over 16 years to matter. You could take 3 months off if you needed to, not comfortably forever. But without panic. Without a single missed payment. You've modeled it, actually modeled it on a spreadsheet nobody's ever seen but you. That's not a sentence you say out loud at a birthday dinner. It doesn't translate. Not because people wouldn't understand the math. Because the math isn't really the thing that needs translating. Here's the part nobody warned you about, back when the goal was just to stop feeling behind. You're not behind anymore. You also don't fully belong to the group still keeping score the way you used to keep it. Alyssa doesn't know about the condo equity, or the 11% going into the 401k every month, or the 6 months sitting quiet in an account labeled don't. You've never told her. It never comes up, because bringing it up would sound like something it isn't, like bragging or like judgment, when really it's just Tuesday for you now. And you don't know what Jordan's accounts actually look like either. The car might be paid off, it might not be. You'll never know, and neither will anyone else at that table, because nobody photographs the number that matters. This is the part the old rooftop jacket version of you never saw coming. You thought the discomfort would just disappear once you had enough. It doesn't disappear. It changes shape. It used to be the discomfort of feeling behind. Now it's the quieter discomfort of being somewhere your closest friends can't quite follow you to. In a conversation that was never really about money to begin with. You still love these people. You just stopped needing them to understand this particular part of your life. That distinction took years to make peace with. There's a version of wealthy nobody puts in a headline. It isn't about the number getting big enough to stop worrying. It's about the number getting big enough that the worrying moves to somewhere new, and you're the only one who can see it. There's no ceremony to it. No countdown, no notification that means anything. Just a Tuesday morning, coffee still too hot to drink, when you open the accounts the way you've opened them for 23 years now. Out of habit, not dread, not excitement either. The combined number, the condo equity, the 401k, the Roth, the taxable account you opened almost by accident somewhere around 34, crosses $1.4 million. It started with $75 every other Friday. But it didn't stay $75. As your income grew, the contributions grew. The 401k grew, with the match riding along beside it, year after year. The Roth grew. The mortgage balance shrank a little more with every payment until at 43, it hit zero. And underneath all of it, the market did its slow, uneven work. Not every year, not on any schedule, just often enough over 2 decades to matter. That number is one version of how 23 years can go. Not a projection of what $75 becomes for everyone who tries it. Markets don't repeat themselves on command, and nobody's 23 years look exactly alike. You sit with the number for a second. You expected to feel something bigger than what you actually feel. What you feel instead is quiet. The same quiet from the account you built at 29, the one nobody clapped for. Just more of it. Structural now, instead of new. The car needs work that same week. $810 a repair shop off Federal Boulevard tells you, like it's nothing. At 22, that number would have meant a very bad month. Tonight, it barely interrupts dinner. Same kind of bill, 23 years apart. Completely different Tuesday. Nobody in your life knows the exact figure in your accounts. Not because you're hiding it, because it never comes up. The same way it never came up at that birthday dinner 7 years ago. It's not a secret, it's just not a photo. You still drive a normal car. Older now, honestly, than it probably should be. You still live in the same condo in Berkeley, paid off 2 years ago, a fact you mentioned to exactly nobody at the time. Somewhere back at that old logistics company, there's a 22-year-old in dispatch doing the math on rent and a card that just declined at a register. He doesn't know your name, he never will. But if he did somehow meet the version of you sitting here now, at 45, he wouldn't recognize what actually got you here. Not one big decision. Not a stock everyone else missed. Not an inheritance, a mentor, or a single lucky break that changed everything overnight. Just $75 that didn't stay $75. And 23 years of showing up for it, mostly unremarkable, mostly ordinary, mostly invisible to everyone standing outside of it. That's the part nobody puts in the headline, because it doesn't make a good headline. It's not dramatic. It never was supposed to be. Somewhere in Denver tonight, a card gets declined at a register. $6 and some change. Nothing dramatic. The cashier looks away. The person behind them checks their phone. Nobody explains in that moment that this isn't really about $6. It never was. The point was never the $75. The point was becoming the person who doesn't need the next paycheck to save them. Don't try to get rich. Build a financial life that's hard to destroy. That was always the whole idea.